aware of the distressing news of Her Majesty, our Queen's illness. On behalf of the island people, I am sure you would wish me to send our strength, love and prayers to our Queen and her family. Because of that, we will be moving around the agenda slightly to accommodate the announcement at 6 o'clock. We all need to be mindful of that announcement at 6 o'clock. Thank you. I have apologies from Phil Jordan this evening, who's unwell. I'm hoping he's going to be online for later on. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Luciani?
It's Council loves paper, better at home. I'm a PA, so I'll leave the room for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans?
No, Chair, I was just going to say that I was going to approve, happy to put forward that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I know, I was just going to say, I've skipped one ahead, trying to get through the meeting as quickly as we can for the 6 o'clock. So, yes, so you took those declarations of interest, so, and minutes of the meeting, you declare that they're a true record. Is there a second of that, please? Councillor Ian Stevens, thank you. I just need to sign those. We'll move on to item number 3, public question time. We've received no written questions, but are there any questions from members of the public? Yes, there are. Oh, if you'd like to come forward to the microphone, it's because there are a lot of people listening online, and unless you use the microphone, they won't be able to hear you. So if you just press the button, is it on the right-hand side up there? I don't know.
Hello? Testing?
Yes. Would you give your name and where you're from?
Paul Townsend, living in Freshwater, representing Sustainable Freshwater Group, currently 500 interested members. Why is the Alliance persisting with the draft island plan when the ONS shows that the dips will exacerbate demographic imbalance on the island? The figure of new builds drops to under 100 per annum for the Isle, massively below the number currently suggested in the plan. That's my question.
Okay, we are debating, as you know, the island plan later on in the agenda. So we have not made a decision, but we will be making a decision later as a cabinet. Thank you. Would you like?
I'm sorry, Chair. I wish to intervene. That is not an answer to the question. You're asked the question now. It's not an answer to the question, in fairness to the member of the public, to say that you're going to discuss it in due course and no decision has been taken. He wants to know why it's being proposed, and you owe him an answer. You're the proposer.
Right, okay, sorry. Thank you for your comment, Councillor Spink. Sorry, you were asking the question, thank you.
I was waiting till you finish your internal debate. So I have a question. My name is Angus McLeod.
Will you answer the first question first, please?
I've given a response, Councillor Spink.
That's disgraceful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you. Sorry, yes, would you like, sorry, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. My name is Angus McLeod. I'm from Bembridge and I represent Build a Better Bembridge, again, about 500 people. And my question also concerns the draft island planning strategy. I've been watching the saga of the planning strategy with some concern, and it's been very disappointing to see that it's a critically important document which has now become highly politicised.
Yeah.
The draft plan as it's currently written and recommended by planning officers doesn't meet the unique needs of the Isle of Wight. It isn't sustainable, it isn't green, it doesn't respect the island's biosphere status, It's ignored the democratically expressed wishes of a significant number of residents, and it will not result in the building of affordable housing in appropriate locations. Now, I understand there was a working party in the Corporate Scrutiny Committee who made a number of recommendations, alternative recommendations to the draft island planning strategy, which the Corporate Scrutiny Committee saw fit to ignore. I'm staggered by this. This is a document which will shape the Isle of Wight for years to come and will affect the way that we and our grandchildren live. You have an obligation to consider these alternative proposals, and I would like to know why they have been rejected.
We can only go with the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee. We don't have to abide by them, but those are the recommendations that were put forward. That was the decisions that were made by those people at that committee.
Thank you for that response. I would hope that the council cabinet members will actually take a long, hard look at themselves and think about the people they represent and the legacy that they're going to leave to the Isle of Wight before moving ahead with the currently proposed draft interim island planning strategy.
Thank you.
I'm Elizabeth Key, also representing Sustainable Freshwater. My question is, why is the Alliance persisting with the draft plan when settlement boundaries have been extended without proper consultation with local communities? It's like the public are being totally ignored here. Thank you. And please may I have my answer in writing, thank you, so that I may proceed with what to do with your answer to my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for requesting a written response. We will get that to you. Thank you. No further questions from members of the public present. The chairman's announcements. I made my announcement about Her Majesty earlier. I would like to pay tribute to the number of organisations that have created such fantastic, very memorable events for us across the island, even in the past month, but throughout the year. And you know, the Garlic Festival, the Wolverton Manners, the Chell Show, none of these things happen without volunteers and all the good people. And it was, I can confer that is not a telephone, that is a medical device, that a medical alert, yes. So so just in case anyone, and I would particularly the scooter rally, which unfortunately I didn't get to this year, and I know it's rather noisy and rather smelly, but I have to say, talking to some of the people on their way home, they did say you do realise this is world class, that this is something that is quite literally people from across the world come to this scooter rally. So I think which we should be very proud of everything, and especially of how welcome everybody feels on the island. I think it's something to be quite proud of, especially, as I say, the volunteers that have put so much hard work in. I know Wight Proms was a huge success again this year, and again that's run by quite a lot of the volunteers. So that's all I would like to say at this moment in time. I am going to defer item 5 and drop that back because I'm conscious about the 6 o'clock deadline and the announcement from the BBC that they will be posting. So I'm going to move on to the report, which is Councillor Love, which is the report of the Cabinet Member, which is 6A for the Better Care Fund. Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, because I'm mindful of the timings. So the Better Care Fund is a national requirement from central government. This council is required to enter into a partnership agreement with the integrated care system, and they formally endorse this document and sign this off. But a mandatory requirement comes to us first. The Better Care Fund needs to be signed off by the Health and Wellbeing Board. It comes to Cabinet prior to that formal sign-off process to enable it to go forward. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I'm just going to say that this is something, there's no changes to this document in terms of previous years, and it's something that we need to do. So if I may move straight to the recommendations in order to help the process. The Cabinet consider and support the continuation of the Better Care Fund arrangement and plan for 22-23. Delegated authority to Director of Adult Social Care and Housing Needs to agree a deed of variation to the current Section 75 agreement incorporated into the Better Care Fund plan for 23. In consultation with the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health and Housing Needs.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Debbie Andre, second on that motion. Thank you. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Just voted in favour, sorry.
Does anyone wish to say anything about the Better Care Fund? No? Okay. Can we move to the vote on that then? Those in favour of the recommendation, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Love. So we move on to item 7 of the report at this moment in time, which is the report for the Cabinet Member for Community Protection, Regulatory Services and Waste. That is, Councillor Luciani, here she is, sorry. If you would like to take paper 7A, please.
I know that you've read your papers and I've probably got Natasha Dix here, so I'll let her explain it in layman's terms.
Okay, thank you. The paper put before you this evening is recommending a provisional consent to the transfer of ownership of the service provider, that being Amey, and novation of a works and operating subcontract to a new entity known as Talia Waste Management. The current waste PPP is held in partnership contract with Amey Isle of Wight SPV, who's a child company of Amey UK PLC. Ferrovial, the ultimate parent company, has made a decision to sell off Amey UK PLC, and that sale will take place in the autumn of 2022. The sale of Amey UK PLC will not include the 4 UK waste contracts that sit under the treatment division, which includes the Isle of Wight Waste Collection and Treatment PPP. Under our contracting structure, we are required to provide consent for that change in ownership and major shareholding, and we are requesting this evening that conditional consent, subject to the completion of financial and legal due diligence, and then the delegation of that final decision to the Cabinet Member in consultation with the Director of Neighbourhoods, as there will be minor amendments being made to contract documents up to the final point of signing.
Okay.
I'd like to propose that.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that one? Jonathan, thank you. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? No, only that I have every faith in you, Tash. You've been there from the start. If anyone knows this contract inside out, upside down and back to front, I think it's you. So have full faith in you. Thank you very much. So all those in favour of this recommendation, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to item 8A of the report. I know that Councillor Jordan is online, but I know that he can't propose or vote because he's not here present. So Councillor Jarman, would you like to take these, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you know, I'm taking these on behalf of Councillor Jordan, who's unable to be represented this evening, but with discussion and counsel with him before the meeting. So on the first item, which regards the Horsebridge Hill TRO, number 1, 2021, the recommendation from him, and I would like to propose that we go with option 2, which is that we reject the TRO on the basis that this is not in line with our policy as determined at the last meeting. I'd look for a seconder for that motion.
Councillor Andre, second that motion. Is there anyone wishing to speak? No. Okay. Councillor Garrett, you indicated that you wish to speak on this item.
Chair, just briefly, the motion that you have before you is the right one. The right way to address the issues on Horsebridge Hill is to wait for the outcome of the speed review. Horsebridge Hill was once recommended for a reduction from 40 miles an hour to 30 mile an hour speed limit in 2010, but that was not taken up at the time. Many of the objectors pointed out that their concern was that it would be better to address any issues relating to Horsebridge Hill and Hogan Road through looking at the speed there. Of course, any reduction in the speed limit would change the displays of visibility necessary, which may be sufficient, as far as I can see, to overcome any need to lose any parking spaces. So I'm pleased to hear that the proposal seems to be to refuse the application at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If there's no further comment, can we please move to the vote on that one? All those in favour? And those against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. Second one, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Moving to 8B directly, which is the Isle of Wight TRO number 1 2022 in your paper. The recommendation again is for option 2, which is to reject this TRO as it is not compliant with Isle of Wight policy as per the previous one. I look for a seconder of that motion.
Councillor Andre, seconded. Anyone wishing to speak? No? Okay, we move straight to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. So we move on to item number, if Chris, can you switch your mic off, Chris? Thank you. So we move on to item 9A of the report, which is the Cabinet Member for Planning and Enforcement, Island Planning Strategy. Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This starts to bring to a conclusion a lot of work that's been undertaken by this council over the last 4 years. The Island Planning Strategy was first investigated by the previous administration, and we picked this up and wanted to accelerate that last May. There's been a lot of consultation since then. We've spoken to a huge amount of user groups. We've spoken to town and parish councils, and I think the net result was we had about 2,900 responses to the consultation that was held on the planning strategy last year. There's been some very good cases made within the planning strategy for amending plans, but I think one of the issues that I always said when we were going out to consultation, the importance of making sure that there is an evidence base to substantiate some of your views on the applications. Listening to what scrutiny committee were talking about the other day, and again it was a very, very long, thorough sort of like a scrutiny meeting. A lot of questions were asked about the Island Planning Strategy, and I would like to read out the recommendation that we have, which is to agree the current version of the draft Island Planning Strategy with the changes recommended by Corporate Scrutiny Committee, namely recommendation 2A, protecting the environment unless development on greenfield is absolutely necessary. Recommendation 3, second and holiday homes. Recommendation 4, environment and commitment to carbon net zero. And recommendation 5, Freeport status, and with the addition of the paragraphs numbered 7.40 to 7.45 as set out below, which is under the first recommendation concerning policy KPS2, HA44, which refers to Newport Harbour. We have given this quite a lot of thought, and we feel that it is quite important taking on board cross-party political views that policy is incorporated within the recommendation that goes to the full council. The paragraphs that we're looking to add to the Island Plan is the following. I'm going to read it all out for clarity purposes. The council is aware that allocated site KP2S, Newport Harbour, may represent the first phase of a wider regeneration opportunity within Newport Town Centre. Working with other stakeholders, including various public sector landowners, the council will undertake feasibility studies and technical evidence work to establish whether any opportunities can be unlocked to further enhance the county town and deliver on the council's regeneration aspirations. 7.41. The council considers that a range of technical work is needed to fully understand the potential within public sector owned land, including dialogue with private landowners over the potential future for their land. The Shaping Newport Place Plan report and the recommendation within it will be a key piece of evidence to help inform any regeneration proposals. This includes a focus on improving public realm and making the town centre a more pleasant place to live and work. 7.42. Undertaking this work will help the council understand whether there is the opportunity to bring forward a high quality, sustainable mixed-use regeneration scheme, providing housing to meet local needs, new enhanced commercial floor space and sustainable transport improvements, whilst maintaining a strong civic presence in the town centre. 7.43. The outcome of this technical work will help to establish a possible yield, both dwellings and floor space, potential delivery timescale, and identify a mix of development that could be accommodated on multiple sites. It will also be necessary to consider the most appropriate planning policy and delivery mechanism to help bring forward these proposals. Section 10 of the IPS includes reference to using the outcomes of any feasibility studies and technical work to determine which elements of the IPS could be reviewed to incorporate these outcomes. 7.44. Any such scheme would support existing and new local businesses within the town centre through increased footfall and help to achieve the aims of the Newport Heritage Action Zone, to restore key buildings and traditional shop fronts, improve public spaces and bring unused parts of the buildings back into use as homes, workplaces and community spaces while protecting the distinctive heritage of the town. A more vibrant nighttime economy could also result in benefiting not just the town centre, but also potential commercial businesses within KPS2, Newport Harbour area. 7.45, in advance of the completion of this work, a number of IPS policies, including G2, priority locations for housing development and growth, H9, new housing on previously developed land, A7, supporting and improving our town centres, C7, delivering locality hubs, C8, facilitating a blue light hub, and EV1, conserving and enhancing our historic environment, or provide in principle support for any redevelopment proposals within Newport Town Centre regeneration opportunity area. I heard at the scrutiny committee how important that policy was to members of the scrutiny committee, and I feel on balance that is a good policy to incorporate within the plan. So I would ask for members to support that. Recommendation 2 is to recommend full council that the draft island planning strategy, dependent on the choice of 1, 2 or 3, is published for the Regulation 19 period of public representation and then submitted to the planning inspectorate for examination. And recommendation 3 is to recommend to full council to delegate any final editorial and presentational changes to the island planning strategy prior to the publication and submission to the Director of Generation in consultation with a Cabinet member for planning enforcement, so long as they do not materially affect the intention of the version agreed by full council. Now, I know if that is the case, there will be plenty of members of this council that will want to cross-examine and scrutinise that, and I look forward to that. So that is my recommendation, Chairman.
Do we have a seconder for those recommendations? Councillor Jones-Evans seconding. Okay, do you wish to speak?
Just very briefly, obviously this the additional words that Councillor Fuller has just read out is something that I've worked with officers to try and bring in as many thoughts that have been voiced over the last sort of year or so with many members of the council. So I think, as we heard on Tuesday, I think we've come to consensus on this, and Councillor Robertson himself, he seemed very pleased that. So pleased that bit of work, by listening and coming to a consensus is a really good place to be in. But I would like to talk about some other great things in the plan, but given the time constraints on us, leader, I think I'll refrain what I was going to say, and I'd like to do that at full council, discuss the island plan in full, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. I have to speak against this recommendation, not least of all, and notwithstanding the comments that were made by who is now the Prime Minister regarding the Stalinist targets, which she is intending to remove, the impending legislation which is currently on target, and in fact the final representations to that committee are today, and by the goal of that paper within Levelling Up to empower local communities. The bottom line is that over the last 10 years, the population of this island, as evidenced by the official ONS data for 2021, shows a population increase of only 2,100. With an average occupancy of 3 per dwelling, that accounts to a requirement for 700 homes, or 70 per year. There was a test case brought because the standard NPPF clause 61 refers to the use of data from 2014 being estimates. Those estimates, of course, in the case of the island, proving to be wholly mistaken. And in fact, that test case was brought. It was the case of Gladman Developments by Corby Borough Council and Uttlesford District Council in 2021. And they were successful in ensuring that they were able to use data post 2014. Further legal investigation has shown that a number of other authorities have been able to use data post 2014, including national parks, the New Forest National Parks, and Northumberland National Park authorities. The Northumberland National Park Authority's case, using fairly contemporary data over the last few years, was recently at the planning inspector, who accepted the use of data post 2014, and their case was accepted and their plan accepted as a result of those updated, accurate figures. We as an island are now in possession of the actual data from the ONS survey. We have the capability, because of that test case, to use that actual data rather than error-based speculative data, and to produce a radically different prospect for housing development on this island, one which meets the needs of islanders, given our projected population growth, and not one which empowers large-scale developments. A rough estimate, were the population to grow by 2,100 over the next 10 years, would lead you to a figure of 70 per year, radically different to the figure that this document currently produces. So I have to object to this paper in the strongest possible sense, and I will be here today voting against the motion. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Love, then Councillor Paul Fuller.
I'll give way to Councillor Ford to answer the question as he indicated. Then I'd like to take my question.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think when we look at data, I think there's nobody more versed on data around this table than Councillor Jarman. I think one of the things that we are attempting to do with the island plan is we are questioning, scrutinising the standard methodology that government uses for their housing figures for the Isle of Wight. The government has suggested that the island should be able to build 730 homes a year. That is where the target that we have within the presumption in favour of sustainable development. That is where we have to head towards. However, within the island planning strategy, we have suppressed that number to as low as we feel that we can take it, and that number is down to 479. I think that number is quite a clear reflection of the housing that we've had on the island, particularly for the last couple of years. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, Chris, with the recession taking hold this year. We don't know where we're going to be, but I think one of the things that I've wanted assurance from within the island plan is the ability for it to be flexible. And I think with flexible, we we are mindful of what is coming in from government, whether government's going to change their policies or not, as may be the case. I think to put things into perspective, I'd like to draw members' attention to the timescales for the island planning strategy. If, and this is a big if, the full council supports the island plan later this month, it should be noticed that the publication of that report will not appear until the end of October. Now, I know Councillor Spink quite rightly raised issues concerning this on Tuesday, and I would like to hope that by the end of October that will be available, so we can look at that in the context of the plan that we submit to the planning inspector. The timescale for this is fairly long, and I know there's residents from Freshwater and Bembridge that are here, and I thank them for coming along to this evening. It's good to see you all. Again, we know that there is a huge risk to having those allocations within the plan. We want the plan to be adopted and supported by the inspector, and if we take allocations out, subsequently that will impact upon how strong our plan can be when we take it to the inspector. For that reason, I've sort of like spoken to a couple of residents, and I've said I'm very happy that when we go to the planning inspector, if we get to that stage, then I would like to see the most robust arguments and the robust evidence presented, because that is definitely going to be required under the current government mantra. So I thank the teams from Sustainable Freshwater and Build a Better Bembridge for a lot of their efforts that they put into this. It is gratefully received. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Love, then Councillor Ian Stevens.
I would like an opportunity to reply to Councillor.
No, I'm sorry. No, thank you. Paul Fuller.
No.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm ready to ask and take things forward. I really don't want to hear someone speaking out of turn. Councillor Spink understands the rudiments and the way that we run to a framework in our committee structure. Councillor Spink will have a time after we've spoken when you introduce him. Thank you.
And the reason why you'll have to wait to come back, Chris, is because other people had their hand up before you. Thank you. Councillor Love, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say a few little things about this. I mean, today we met with Isle of Wight Local Council Association, where we also had discussions about this. I think everybody has struggled with some elements of this plan from the beginning, but it's actually a tribute to you that you've got this far, given all of the difficulties that everybody's expressed. There's been a lot of listening, there's been a lot of heartfelt feelings and emotions expressed from councillors in parish and town councils, right across to all of us. And it's no secret that I took exception to the fact that there was a proposal to remove both Bembridge and Freshwater from the plan. If they're going to do that, then why shouldn't everybody else have elements removed for very similar reasons? And there is such a thing called equality and inclusion, and those were the things which I was quite concerned about in removing some of those elements. And also at this particular stage, we've had many months to be able to bring such recommendations forward, and weren't until the last moment to provide justification. I would think, if it is possible, just to help, although I think you've done this in part, explain just a couple of elements more, if that's possible, Councillor Fuller. I'd like to ask, could you explain why, for the public, it's important not to delay this particular process at this point, and to explain to the public what the next steps are. I think you've done that in part, but because this is not the end of the process.
Thank you for that. I would like to, I know that we're on a very short time scale this evening. I think the issue that we've got is the longer that we leave the island plan, the less teeth that our planning committee has to be able to question, challenge, scrutinise planning applications. Councillor Spink, I've heard speak at many planning committee meetings. One of the things that Peter has mentioned is the need of some of the policies that we've actually got in the island plan and how we can use that to make sure that proposals that are being made by developers are better than they could be. Again, the longer that we leave having a plan, the less tools that we give our planners to be able to be consistent with what our local communities want. There's a couple of applications. We know that there's live applications for Freshwater and also in Bembridge that are coming up. I think, however we look at that, it would be great if we could use this plan to be able to use some of the arguments to be able to challenge those applications. The longer we leave it, the longer we have a fairly toothless planning policy in place. That planning policy was brought into place in 2012. Although it has a 15-year life cycle, we have to remember that it was superseded by the NPPF. We don't have the ability to be as flexible as I hope that we will have with the island plan. When we're seeing a lot of plans being supported by inspectors across the country, they have sort of like highlighted the fact that plans should be reviewed on a regular basis. And again, I think it's important that although government policy could change, and that is a big could, because we've been hearing murmurs from government for several years about changing planning policies, then hopefully we can, I'll be working to try to embed that within the plan. So thank you. But I think the more we delay it, and the peer review actually had said this, the delays aren't helping our planning authority or our residents on the Isle of Wight.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I've been quoting many a time in this chamber and elsewhere with reference to the people less fortunate than a lot of us. Some in caravans, some in bed and breakfast, some in very temporary accommodation, some overcrowded. Within this plan, and if we delay it anymore, I don't think, to be quite honest, it's good to have residents groups coming forward and stating their case for their district. But I could fill that gallery 10 times over with people in temporary accommodation. If I went round this island, whether it be Freshwater or Bembridge, or where I live in Ryde. Now, we need to get a grip of this. We need to move forward with this. Councillor Fuller has been round the island about 2 or 3 times, along with our planning officers, consulting, trying to sort things through. We've come up with recommendations now from our corporate scrutiny committee, and quite rightly so, we've listened. Quite rightly so, they're coming forward. Now, for goodness sake, let's start to get moving on this. And words by a minister, whether it's a junior minister, senior minister, or a prime minister, are words. They're not written in statute. They're not there ready to move forward. And we've had words before. We've had words that our MP has actually said, Boris is going to deliver the island deal. Well, Boris has come and gone. The island deal hasn't even started to arrive yet. So I want to that's just a statement to let you know that remarks are made in all good faith, but until the train arrives with the goodies on it, we don't know what we're going to get. So That's my opinion. We've got people in dire need of housing. We've got people less fortunate than ourselves. And as I said, I could fill this chamber, the upstairs room, and God forbid elsewhere. And I wish I didn't have to even mention that. But we are in a perilous state. Some of this and some of the recommendations coming through from corporate scrutiny are good, very good. They reinforce where we need to go. They're talking about second homes, etc., and so they should. But I'll just turn over to, let's get the page, page 213 of this document. And if you look down at 3.48, and you look at, let's just take West Wight at the top of the list there, regeneration area, West Wight regeneration area, homes with planning permission, 141. Homes allocated without planning permission at this stage, 321. Now that's 6%. Now, just take me at Ryde regeneration area. Homes with planning permission, 832. Homes allocated without planning permission, 665. And I'll look at the percentage, 26%. Now, it's an affront to me and members of Ryde that we should actually start to think that we should take things out of the document like this. I'm prepared for my people in Ryde, and I represent a few, as does Councillor Churchman, as does Councillor Lucioni. And we're taking the brunt along with Newport. Now, let's not dissect and bisect the Isle of Wight up. Let's pull together and let's get a planning strategy that works for the island and not for the odd 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 who will actually come back and haunt us in a few years' time to actually say, you can't close my school, you can't close my bank, you can't, we don't deserve not having a bus service. Well, hold on, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because without a thriving community, without becoming a dormitory town, that is what you'll get. You'll get your local restaurant open on a Friday night, Saturday night, and possibly on a Sunday, and close the rest of the week. You'll end up with no public services as such. And you'll become, what I said, a dormitory town. And I don't want to see our villages, our hamlets, our island becoming or succumb to that state. And I'll leave it at that. But I really mean, and I went against the situation with regard to TROs because I want correct planning. I want to make sure that we get the correct planning. I want to make sure that we provide for the people that need provision. I'm going to leave it at that. But if you want to look at something that to interest you, look at the Mayor of London's page on housing as well, because there's a over 65s column there that actually says if you want a property on the Isle of Wight, contact me. And that's not me. That's the Lord. That's the Mayor of London. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jarman, and then Councillor Love wants to come back in.
So the first thing is, and if somebody can show me that I'm wrong on this, I'm happy to do it, because I do have it in writing. We do have independent legal advice. Our plan from 2012 to 2027 is not overwritten by the NPPF. If there is a clause in the NPPF which is contrary to our 2012-2027 plan, the NPPF takes precedence. There are many elements of our plan where NPPF revisions have not overruled elements of that document. The document is still valid and it remains so. We were told at the beginning of this process that we should provide an evidence-based approach. So let's look at what the evidence is. The evidence is that our population over 10 years has grown actually by 2,100, not by some speculative figure. This is a contemporary figure produced by a government agency, the ONS. It is very accurate, I believe, as much as they ever can be, and we are using it to compare with 2011. We also have from them the extrapolation of that figure. So that is the evidence. The second series of evidence is our demographics, also produced by the ONS. We know that we have a predominantly aged population, and from that, the extrapolation shows, given that over 65, 75s and 85s dominate within that matrix, the number of children they tend to have is relatively small, and therefore it's reasonable to assume that the population in that category, as they age over the next 15 years, will decline, although others will take their place, and the birth rate on the island will, if we do nothing about it, continue to fall. The third piece of evidence is that we have, as of last Friday, 1,200 homes for sale on this island, an enormous number for sale. There is no shortage of homes for sale. What there is a chronic shortage of homes for affordable rent, and building more houses will not necessarily give you a solution to that need. The next item is that over the last 10 years, we have approved 5,927 dwellings. We have delivered 3,779. That means we have approved 2.8 dwellings for every single person increase in population. We have delivered 1.8 dwellings for every increase in population. We have an extant undelivered but approved 2,148. Even if our population were to grow at 2,100, the upper bound of the forecast requiring 70 per year, that gives us an extant development of 30 years, not including bringing empty properties back into use or developing sites. We have an enormous residue of approved properties that will meet our future need if brought forward for a very long time. My objection here is not about moving things from one part of the island to another. It's not about whether Ryde should take a disproportionate or whether fields in any part of the island should be excluded. This is that the material fact on which this document is based is wrong. The ONS proves it. There is nothing more I can say about that matter other than to go forward with a wrong document would seem to be completely illogical. Now, of course, Cabinet and indeed full council can take advantage of the ONS figures, or they can go forward and base a proposition and a plan based on faulty data to commit to 479 properties a year, which we do not need, and for which there is no justification in population increase. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring in, I think it was Councillor Love and then Councillor Stevens quickly.
I'll try to go fairly quickly because I too have been looking at the ONS data. However, my concern is slightly different, and I have a different stance on that. And that is that we've got an ageing population and a decreasing birth rate, as you pointed out. I need houses of all kinds, not just targeted. The island people do need affordable rented, and we need to define what that means in terms of affordable, because what's affordable to one person is not affordable to another, but that needs some definition. But I need houses of all types, because what I can see is a growing crisis in workforce for this island. We cannot sustain ourselves as an island with the current workforce that we've got moving forward, caring for those people who need caring. We are already bringing people here from all over the world, really, which is a wonderful thing, I think, to try and support our population. We need to significantly recruit, and that means having a range of housing in all parts of the island. And I do not support the assertion of Councillor Robertson that any houses built in Freshwater and Bembridge would be nothing more than second homes or rented, because I need those houses to accommodate all levels of occupation, from those who earn significant money to those who earn very little money in this council. We need those houses, and that is why I raised issues with it, because in East Cowes, I don't want lots of houses in East Cowes, but I need to give ground in order to get what this island needs. And that has been this process that we've undergone. So, you know, and I do recognise that, you know, that there's there's 2,500 people roughly who need accommodation right now who are island people, and can't find that because the rented market isn't there. And of course, this council is working hard to try and find solutions to that, and it's not easy. I accept that completely. And even if we start building a lot more houses tomorrow, they're going to be 3 years before they're delivered, to 5 years. Realistically, we don't have a workforce to build them anyway. So we need to move this plan forward. It needs to get moving. And there's opportunity, as has been explained by Councillor Fuller, for changes in the coming months and weeks to this plan potentially, as it goes out to consultation again. I'm correct about that, am I not, Councillor Fuller? Yes. So there is opportunity to change it, but I will not accommodate an argument which simply says, don't build houses in my area, as Councillor Robertson indicated, simply because they'll be taken up by people who are second homeowners. It's true, some of them will be taken up by second homeowners. That's a reality, that some of them will be. But in order to get what we want in terms of housing, we have to accommodate everything. And that's my point now at this time. So I will be supporting this after a lot of heart soul searching, but I definitely would not have supported it if Bembridge and Freshwater had been taken out of the plan.
No?
I think that Councillor
Okay, I mean, I will just read the stats out. And as much as I know that Councillor Jarman is an amazing statistician, I've got 165 households that are in temporary accommodation, which is almost like emergency temporary accommodation. We've actually got 56 people that are in single accommodation. And while I take umbrage about the numbers, because a lot of people now are choosing to live singularly, and that has caused a spike. We have got 8 children, eight of our island kids that are in bed and breakfast. They're walking the streets because they're not allowed to be in bed and breakfast. They're only allowed there from a certain time in the evening to a certain time in the morning. So we've got eight children that are having that massive detrimental effect on them. We've got 5 people on band 1. That means they are in absolute immediate risk, and need of housing. And in band 2, we've got 308 people. I mean, you know, you can go on about, but this is the people. I hear the stories every day. I'm rung up every day, pleading for me to find them accommodation. So anyway, I just wanted to put those stats out there because I think it's important we keep all of this into perspective. Thank you. Are there any further questions? Thank you, Councillor Spink, and then Councillor Churchman. I am mindful 6 o'clock, we are waiting announcement.
Yes.
If it's not a very nice announcement, I will be calling the meeting to an end.
In order, I have many questions that I would like to ask, but I do appreciate that I'm not a member of the Cabinet, and I'm going to try and concentrate on 2 main points. But I can't do justice, I mean, it's 5 to 6 now, I can't do justice to that in 3 minutes. So I don't know if you would like to break. I mean, and we'll hear the announcement. It's 5 to 6 already, and then start again.
My concern is that we can't really carry on if there's an announcement that, you know, we can't really carry on the meeting. And I really do want to try and move forward.
I'm only saying that I can't ask my questions in 4 minutes and receive the answers. So do you want me to start and then break off?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. If I've understood correctly, and it may be that I've misunderstood, because it's not a complaint, simply a reality. I don't have all the documentation in front of me that Cabinet members have. But am I right in thinking that the recommendation of corporate scrutiny, that in effect SP1, the effects of that and the amendments that were in the corporate scrutiny papers, am I right in thinking that, thank you, that has not been, that is not recommended, as it were, to this Cabinet? So the inclusion of SP1 or the effects thereof is not recommended to this Cabinet. Is that right?
I'm going to refer to to Mr. Bolter, because I know you and I discussed this, Councillor Spink, and it was something that I felt was quite important that was added. I'm just going to ask.
If I can try and short circuit it, it was a recommendation of corporate scrutiny. How are you, as the portfolio holder for planning, are you accepting and recommending to the cabinet that recommendation of corporate scrutiny? Because I'm confused. What I'd like.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes.
I don't think it is it? Okay, may I just have a couple of minutes?
It was read out in full, Councillor Spink.
We'll skip on to Councillor Churchman while Councillor
Yeah.
Spink reads those up.
Ever since I've been on the island, which is 25 years, it's quite a long time now, I've seen the housing problem get worse and worse. And unfortunately, I don't see the island plan solving our basic problem of housing island people. Even if you build houses in Bembridge, no way are they going, even if some are supposedly affordable, at £600,000 a time, they're not going to be affordable to anybody. The basic problem is we are not building what I call council or social housing. Our allocation of saying to a builder, we need 30% of whatever, is okay until that builder builds less than, is it 12 or 14, where they don't have to supply affordable housing? We defeat the object. We have a terrible problem at the moment with rental properties because people are now taking properties off the market for Airbnb. Until we can solve that problem, and that will have to be some form of government legislation, until we can solve the problem of second home ownership on the island, again, a problem. I'm sorry, if you've got 6 loaves of bread, you don't give 3 people 2 each. And this, to me, is exactly what second home owners are doing. If they want a second home, for goodness sake, go to Spain or something. However, I'm afraid whatever island plan we come up with, we are not solving the problem of providing social housing for the people who need it. Without those people, our economy cannot grow, and it won't grow because there's no workforce, which means people won't come here to set up businesses. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Love.
So the problem is that previous administrations have built virtually no housing for rent. That's part of the problem. Your administration brought very little housing forward for social housing. So we have reached an issue, and previous to that as well, to be fair, we've reached a point where we've neglected building the types of housing that we need, and we've now reached a point where we are trying to do something, as clumsy or not as it may seem. And you are right about second housing. We do need to do something about that, as well as build, and that's what this bill is about, as far as I can see. But I mean, but this is a collective issue which has built up over many years. And I'm sorry, you know, your administration was as guilty as anybody for not bringing this plan forward much earlier. And it could have been because it was started, and not delivering any housing. I think in 1 year you delivered virtually nothing.
Excuse me, Branston Farm was a Conservative, a very successful council-owned land, and Branston Farm is providing a lot of real affordable housing. Thank you.
Just, I am conscious about this. If you see the recommendation that Councillor Spink with the red writing on it, item 1, it does say that we are agreeing about the second and holiday homes, which was at scrutiny. That's in recommendation 1, Vanessa, so that you know.
Wasn't the one I was concerned about. The one I was concerned about is 2A, and the only point of clarification that I would ask for, because I've learned that it's important that the detail is clarified in this council at the time, is this. Will that mean
I'm very conscious of time, but Councillor, I think at the top of that page, it says 2A is being recommended and is before us as
Well,
part
I've
of the
got-
recommendation.
I've been caught out before by not dotting every I and every T in this council, and I wish to do so. But why don't we stop and hear the announcement? Well, it depends. I can't. We can reconvene tomorrow.
Excuse me, I am the chair, in case you've forgotten. So yes, there could be an announcement at 6 or any time after. We will keep going forward until I've got everybody waiting the response. So we will continue, Councillor Spink. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. For Councillor Spink's information, recommendation 2A that you'd be aware of that went to scrutiny the other day says the following.
But I've given everyone the time to speak. You've had some. You haven't finished. Okay. If you'd like to come back with another question.
So I had 2 points. So I'm grateful to Councillor Fuller for clarifying that matter, and I'm sorry if I was slow to understand, but these things happen. The other matter that is concerning me, and there are many matters, but I am really trying to concentrate on the main matters that is concerning me, is this, that at corporate scrutiny, and I know this cabinet takes corporate scrutiny seriously, at corporate scrutiny, I asked for a short delay until November so that the matter with DIPS could come back before full council in November. And there were 2 reasons, but the reason that is relevant really to tonight's meeting is that I said that it has been stated by the now Prime Minister that she will abolish mandatory housing targets and will do so by amending the Levelling Up Bill at committee stage. And committee stage completes on the 20th of September. Now, she could also amend it, but it's not her recommendation in what is known as the report stage. But normally, as I understand it, amendments are made in the committee stage. So all I was asking for was an adjournment until November. And then the DIPS could proceed either in its current form or taking into account expected and indeed already in place changes in the law if it happens. Now, the point that I raise is this, that before, in order no doubt to inform corporate scrutiny of the situation as he understood it to be, Councillor Fuller said, and I don't say that he was intentionally misleading, I don't say that, but he said that there has been an announcement that there will be no changes to planning law until at least 2023. That he, Councillor Fuller, had been advised that the planning press had made an announcement that day, that is on Tuesday of corporate scrutiny, and that was there would be no changes from the new, no changes until 2023, and that had been given, according to the planning press, by the new Prime Minister. Now, as I understand it, both the Chief Executive and Councillor Fuller agree that unfortunately that information was incorrect. If I say untrue, I don't mean it in a dishonest sense, but it is wrong. And corporate scrutiny rejected my motion, and there is every chance, and it certainly can't be ruled out, that the reason they objected it was because of the false information given innocently by Councillor Fuller. And it doesn't seem right to me that corporate scrutiny's function has been curtailed in this important regard by a false statement. And I therefore ask, please, and it may still be possible, I'm not simply trying to get an adjournment of the DIPS by the back door, it may still be possible to reconvene corporate scrutiny with the correct information. But I consider it wrong and wrong in principle, and ask people who are fair and reasonably minded and accept that proceedings should be seen to be fair as well as being fair, to say that it would be wrong to proceed when the cabinet for when the cabinet member for planning has made an innocently but nevertheless false statement to corporate scrutiny. That needs to be remedied because corporate scrutiny might actually recommend an adjournment until November, and then it would have to be considered seriously. That's all I say.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Jonathan Bacon. Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. I was indicating earlier because there are a couple of things I want to say, but I'm happy to, I think, address the point that's just been raised, because it strikes me that what is being requested at the root of it, Councillor Spink, is a deferment to allow any outcome of the current committee stage to be considered. That's what I understand you're suggesting.
Just say that again, please.
A deferment so as the results of the current committee stage that is underway, that you say will conclude by end of September, can be considered.
Yes.
Well, I think Councillor Fuller's answered that point because he's made it clear that whatever decision is made by full council on the 21st, the actual process of pulling together everything that then gets sent off will take another 6 weeks. So there's more than ample opportunity, as Councillor Fuller said, for should some sudden change difference come about to be taken account of.
I don't think, and
that's the answer to that point. I think.
No, but may I just answer that?
I was hoping to.
May I just answer that? I don't think, with respect, that that is correct, because once full council has voted that the plan goes to the inspector, which will
just consultation is
once well that it goes out for consultation and then to the inspector is the procedure.
Very much what we've been told is there's still that opportunity. Otherwise, Councillor Fuller would not have said that just now.
Full council would have to reconvene, wouldn't it, and say that its motion that it should go out for consultation and then to the inspector should be revoked, and it can't do that for 6 months, can it?
I imagine that if full council was in a situation where legislation changes radically to alter the position it is in,
full council will be more than happy to take whatever steps necessary to step back, withdraw, and take account of the new position. And that is perfectly possible.
It can only take steps that are allowed within the Constitution. And I note that you say, I imagine. I don't want to imagine. I want to know what the position is. And I'm concerned that once full council has voted, it can't revisit it for a period of 6 months. Plus, there's no guarantee that full council will, I don't know what view full council would take, but it doesn't seem to me that what you're saying, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on the constitution of the Isle of Wight Council, it doesn't seem to me as if what you're saying, or indeed Councillor Fuller is saying, is therefore correct.
Well, we will disagree on that. I was,
perhaps we need a ruling on it. Perhaps our monitor.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Spink. In terms of the point raised about revisiting a decision made by full council, this is the anorak moment from the monitoring officer, so apologies. But Part 4B, Rule 8, allows previous decisions of full council to be revisited. There is a condition to that in order to prevent, a lack of progress. The condition is that there must be a motion of notice signed by at least 1/3 of the membership. So the short point is, should council feel they need to revisit a decision, for example, due to change of legislation or any other good reason, then provided motion on notice with at least 1/3 of the full council membership supporting that discussion, then yes, indeed, it could. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I continue?
For that clarity.
So I wasn't just imagining it then. Leader, I will watch my words carefully in the future. So Leader, as I say, I was indicating earlier, and I suppose what I was going to say in part ties in with what Councillor Spink has been saying, that work to get a submittable plan has been going on for at least 5 years. Now, a comment was made earlier that it's not a green plan. I have to disagree with that very strongly, as I do obviously hold the Environment and Heritage Brief. Previously, I was chair of the AONB, and in that role, I was working on early iterations of this plan where we were, for the first time, putting in a policy for the AONB, putting in a policy for dark skies. So I say that partly to counter the comment that's made earlier, but also to underline the point that this work has been going on for so long that we need to advance things. And it is difficult and difficult for some quarters because it is a plan for the whole island. It's a holistic plan. I think very often it is just addressed as being about housing numbers. That's a very small part of it. It's about, if you like, the whole biosphere, the land, sea and air and the water surrounding it is all affected by what we do. I think a very compelling speech was given by my colleague Councillor Stevens earlier when he, if you like, dealt with the effect of the plan on people. My concern, obviously, with my portfolio is the effect of the plan on the place. And I think it is it's not perfect, no one's claiming it is, but it is a powerful plan that will aid many aspects of that. I was particularly pleased to see recommendation 4 that was before the Scrutiny Committee come forward and now be before us this evening, which is looking to support the biosphere, and particularly our Mission Zero plan. It is important. It will affect both people and place. And I think coming back maybe to some of the points that were being raised in the more discussion rather than questioning earlier, this isn't the plan, it's a plan. There's still a long way to go. And I think we can be pretty sure that what we have in front of us today, what full council has in front of it on the 21st of September, will change after that point. It has to go through the whole inspection process, and I'm going to imagine on this point, but I imagine there are very few examples of plans that have been through an inspector and remain unaltered. All we are doing today in Cabinet is making a recommendation to full council. Full council has the key decision in the coming weeks as to whether the plan actually goes into that process. And as has been said, it is a long process. Deferment has been suggested. I suppose I've made what I think is the key point, and Mr. Potter has given us the constitutional backup. But we have to note that no proposal for deferment is before us. No member of this committee has made one. No recommendation is before us. And I must say that I sat there and listened to the debate in corporate scrutiny, and I heard no compelling arguments for a deferment. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned today, which I think should be mentioned, is the LGA has made it very clear. They've come in and done a peer review. They spent 3-4 days here. A lot of us came and sat and listened to a quite sobering presentation of their findings, but the headline was, you need a plan, and you need it as soon as possible. And I think that just feeds into all the comments in support of the recommendation that have been made today. So I'm hoping we're going to move to the vote soon, Leader, because we need to advance things without further delay. And also, I sort of hinted at this earlier, but what we're doing here is working within rules that government has set. It would be very easy if one was just given a blank piece of paper and said, here, write a plan for the island, write what you'd like. And I'm sure we could all come up with something, and we could all have our dreams. But we have to work within the rules of the inspection process, of the government legislation that still overarches things. And so, as has been said by a number of people, this is not the best plan, the perfect plan, but it's the best plan, I think, at this stage with the work that's been done that we can get, that we can legitimately get. And I certainly will be supporting it with the recommendations from scrutiny that Councillor Fuller has outlined, because I think this gives us the best opportunity at this stage to get the best for the island going into the next stage of the process.
Leader, may I propose that we move to the vote?
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so we've got Councillor Fuller made the proposal. It was seconded by Councillor Jones-Evans. So moving to the recommendation, and all those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. And no, sorry, not unanimous. I'm sorry. Abstention? Against? Against. One against. Okay, thank you very much. So we bring on now to the item 5A, which is the QPMR. I keep saying Queen's Park Rangers every time I say this. QPMR, and that is you, Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. The document's been reviewed a number of times internally and was reviewed at corporate scrutiny. There were a few issues that came up from some of the numbers within corporate scrutiny. Councillor Fuller was correct earlier that I do like numbers. I find them very empirical and much easier to debate than much of the verbose language that we often see in the chamber. But the numbers are what they are. I think it's very good that we have this level of detail. There were a few things that came out from corporate scrutiny, and just to bring those forward, there were questions about the floating bridge and a few of the other numbers in terms of their detail. Those are being addressed by a review of those numbers and some written answers back. There was also a question about the relevance of numbers where a figure is changed from 7 to 8, and we give it as a percentage basis. And in forwards, we're looking at that issue as well. The third component that was raised was whether some of the existing chart structures were the most appropriate, and a suggestion that some of those should actually be bar charts rather than line graphs. So we will look at that. I do feel, though, that it is very important that we maintain the historical context within the charts we've got at the moment, because they do show trends, and trends are as important as the absolute measurement at any particular time. So unless there are any other questions on the paper, I move that we formally recognise that paper.
I'd just like to second that, Councillor P.C. Wilcox, leader, and move to the vote.
We'll move to the vote on that one. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous, no abstentions, no one against. Okay, thank you. So we move on to item number 10, which is Cabinet Member announcements. I have requested that people, unless it is extremely urgent, we will not be making Cabinet announcements. So is there, I think Councillor Jones-Evans has got something.
I have got some, interesting good news, but I think given what you've just said, Leader. Sorry, Leader. I've got some things to say, but given the circumstance, I think it would be wrong to take up the time we have now.
I agree. I think we're all waiting. So we've got item for considerations on the forward plan. Okay. Yes. No comment. Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to item number 12, which is members' question time. Are there any further questions? No. Well, then I thank you all very much for coming, particularly the public that came tonight, and thank you for their interest in our island and their questions. Thank the media that sits there patiently through everything. I'm sorry I was a bit emotional at the start, but emotional times, I think. Thank you very much. Good night.